Hello, and welcome back. Welcome to Joy of the Garden. I'm Joy. This is my garden. I'm very excited to be back today because it's time to plant the seedlings, finally. They have been growing inside for probably 3 weeks and hardening off for about a week, maybe a little bit more because we had some storms, so it wasn't a great time to put them outside. But now they are hardened off. They might be a little bit smaller than I would want them to be before they come to live outside full time, but I want to start some new seeds inside, so these ones have got to get out. So I'm very excited. First, though, I want to take you through some of the planting that I did a couple days ago, so I can show you what I put into the garden. Now, I did actually video when I did my next planting that I'm about to show you, which is really my spring direct sown seeds. But I came out here in the heat of the day. I was sweating disgusting, and it was not fun to watch when I went back to look at it. So I'm still going to show you what I did, but maybe you don't have to see me struggle through the process. So the first thing that I direct sowed just probably 2 or 3 days ago were my carrots. So this is going to be the first bed of carrots. I have 2 types here. Danvers 126, which I got from M.I. Gardener, and Shin Kuroda, which I got from Botanical Interest. Shin Kuroda is supposed to be just like a really tasty orange carrot. I grew it last year, but I didn't let it stay in the ground long enough, so I didn't get a great harvest to be able to tell you my opinion, really. But I did use the carrot tops for pesto, which was delicious. And then the Danvers 126 back there is supposed to be just like a very delicious heirloom that performs generally pretty well. I'm not sure if you can see it, but you can see my current arch nemesis, the pill bug or the roly-poly. There it is. So disrespectful on my sign. I actually had the same problem last year with the roly-polies that started, well, because I typically like to come out, lay my compost, put some straw over it, and then let that simmer for maybe a week or 2 before I actually plant out into the garden. And that's what I did last year. That's what I did this year. But I think that mulch being in place with the wet soil, because I like to moisten it, obviously, just like everyone else does. The wet soil with the mulch creates the perfect habitat for roly-polies. They really like dead things, dry things. They feed on little dead leaves and things like that typically. And so in the absence of that, they're happy to feed on the dead things in my soil. So I have tons of them. You can't really see them when I show you the soil surface because they bury underneath. They don't really like being out in the open. But regardless, I had the problem last year. I didn't do much about it. It kind of resolved itself when the season really started and more of their predators were able to come into the garden. And so I'm trying not to freak out or to do anything about it, and just let nature take its course. The only thing that has me feeling a little bit leery is that I'm now about to put little baby seedlings out, and I'm hoping that they don't eat my seedlings. So I might just plant out a little bit of extra so that just in case they go crazy, I have a backup plan. Okay, so now this is actually my second location for my carrots. These are actually being grown vertically. So I have 1 row of aptly named purple carrot. It is as you may have guessed, purple carrot coming from M.I. Gardener. So I planted that this way. And then on this side, I have half a row of Danvers 126, half a row of Shin Kuroda, since I do already have another sowing a little bit further down. Like I said before, I didn't get a ton of carrots last year, so I'm hoping to get a little bit more this year. And you will see that I have this little cardboard right next to it. And that's because the way that I sow my carrots is to first sow it in ground, obviously, keep it nice and moist. The carrot seed, if it dries out, will not germinate. So it has to stay moist for the entire 14-ish days until it's time for it to germinate. So what I have been doing is taking the cardboard. You can't really tell right now because I just got out here for the morning, but I will wet this, put it on top of my carrots, and then that allows the sun to dry out the cardboard and not so much the soil so that it can stay moist. And once I see green tops coming, once I see it germinating, I'll take that cardboard off so that they can get sunlight. But at that point, they've already germinated and my goal has been reached. So I will go ahead and cover it up with the wet cardboard now that I've showed you guys what I planted. Now, you'll see lots of different ways to keep your carrot seeds moistened so that they'll germinate. Some people will use like a wooden board. Other people use cardboard like me. Other people just physically come out here and water their plants multiple times a day to try and keep them moist. I'm sorry. Personally, I find that the cardboard's easier. One, because I have a lot of it around the house from online ordering and things like that. But also because I don't have time to come out here multiple times a day. At least not to water. I might come out here just to check on things, but not to water my plants. All right, so next up on this direct sowing that happened a few days ago is my cucumbers. So I used this trellis for cucumbers last year. It worked really well, other than the fact that my cucumbers themselves did not work very well. There were just a lot of cucumber beetles. They got to nearly every cucumber. I got almost nothing. So this year I'm planning on fighting a little bit harder for my cucumbers, maybe spraying once or twice, trying to make sure that I get to keep it. So I have 4 different plants on either side of this trellis, which may be a little bit tight, but I'm willing to try it. Last year I grew only one variety of the cucumber. It was this one back here, the Space Master 80, which germinated great. It grew. I just didn't get to eat anything because of pests. Now this year I am determined to actually make pickles. I love pickles, and so I have a couple different pickling varieties. So first I have Gateway planted here. That's just a slicing cucumber that I got from Johnny's. Then I have Hocus, which is supposed to be a pickling cucumber that I got from Botanical Interest. I have Diva, which is a slicing cucumber from Johnny's and also has the very cutest sparkly pink seed that you've ever seen. And then lastly, I have Max Pack over here. That is also a pickling cucumber that I got from Botanical Interest. So that makes a total of 4 different types. No, that's not right. 5 different types. So I'm very excited to see if I can get those to take off this year and actually have a harvest that I can enjoy. Now, my next seed that I direct sowed can be a little bit controversial because some people hate it, other people love it. I happen to be in the camp of people that love it, and that next seed is okra. So I had great success with okra last year. I know some climates have a lot of problems generating enough heat for it to really take off. Okra really loves the heat. Atlanta does not have a problem with that during the summertime in particular. So I grew only this one, the Clemson Spineless, last year, which was great because it's spineless. And it also, like I said, produced a ton. I actually wanted more of it than what I had. I only planted 2 plants. So this year I'm doing 3. I have 2 Clemson Spineless. And then in the center here, I'm trying one called Red Burgundy, which is supposed to be red. obviously, which is why I'm planting it, because I think it might look nice. But also, it'll be interesting for me to see one that is not spineless, because I've heard that sometimes those okra spines can be a little bit irritating, and I don't actually know how I will do with them. So we'll see. It'll either open or close some doors for me in the future, and we'll see how that goes. The last seeds that I direct sowed a few days ago were right here in this little vertical row here, and those are the beets. I am determined to like beets this year. I don't dislike them. I just am not accustomed to using them. And so I want to become accustomed to using them because they're beautiful. They're so easy to grow. And I got some last year. I just didn't really know what to do with them. So I have 3 different varieties planted here. In the very back is my only red beet, because I think that I do prefer the yellow beets or the golden beets or whatever they're called. But I have the red acre beet in the back because I feel like you need a classic, the red beet being the classic. And then in the middle, I have Touchstone Gold, which is a new variety to me from Johnny's. And then Golden Boy, which I had last year, and what I did eat of it tasted great. So I'm excited to have it again. And that one is from Botanical Interests. Now you may have seen in the background so far that some of the seeds that we planted together last time have started to germinate and are starting to get some true leaves. They're growing up so beautifully, and I want you to see them. Now, all the way over here in the shade, which I'm not sure how well you can see that, are the cilantro seeds. I think that they're only germinating this well because they are kind of shaded by the bed itself here, because it has been a little bit hot. So I'm a little worried about how well they're gonna do. But right now, they look great. I actually need to thin them out today so that they can grow as high as they're gonna grow for me. These are our spinach rows, and I thought that spinach hated me. It turns out it doesn't, because I have quite a few plants here, actually. Very excited. I went through and did kind of like a loose thinning probably a week ago. Now there's still some more thinning to be done, but they have grown a little bit since the last thinning, so it is working. And then over here, lots of thinning to be done. These are our lettuce seeds, so I'm gonna have salads for days and weeks and months. But I'm very excited. I love how well they germinated. I really wanted to be able to have basically like a salad buffet, honestly, whenever I want it. And I think that as long as I thin this appropriately, I will be able to have that. That's pretty exciting. And the last thing that we planted that looks to be doing great so far were these beans. So you can see on that end of the bed, there's been pretty good germination. There's not many open spaces over there. And then on this side of the bed, the closest side to me, there's been pretty good germination, other than this little hole here. But now there's these little ones kind of popping up now, so it's trying to catch up. And then over here, you can see these big, beautiful leaves. They are taking off slowly but surely. So I mentioned that today's order of business is getting these seedlings out of my house and into the ground, and ideally not into the belly of a roly-poly. So hopefully I can be successful with that. I'm going to show you guys what I have. Some of it has done well with the hardening off process. Some of it has done less well, but I do think that I have enough to really get started. So these are the tomatoes. Most of them look pretty good. They actually, I think I was overwatering them in the beginning because I wanted them to grow really fast. And it actually did the opposite. So most of them were a little bit stunted in the beginning. They're a little bit leggy toward the beginning there. But they've really come a long way since I stopped overwatering them, started fertilizing them. And I think that they have enough that they're ready to go out into the ground. Typically they say that you want 4-ish true leaves before you plant them out, and you can see this one has about 3. This one has about 3, so they're a little bit young, but I think that they're okay. So when you look at the seedling, you can see if I could isolate one. Let's see if I can just isolate this one. Okay, so let's look at this one in the front here. So there's these two seed leaves, or cotyledons, whatever they're called. Those are not the true leaves of the plant. Those are just the first ones that come out of the seed when it germinates. They look pretty universal, regardless of what you're growing. The seed leaves will look the same. Then come your true leaves. So those are the leaves that come after those two. So they start to look more like what the plant is going to look like. So this is a Brandywine tomato, and their leaves, I'm finding, look different than the other tomato leaves. I actually didn't grow Brandywine last year, so this is all new to me. For example, this one is the San Marzano, so you can see kind of what the tomato leaf typically looks like. That's the shape that I'm used to looking at. And the Brandywine has these smooth edges and is a little bit different, so that's a little bit interesting. So this is the second tray. I have some cabbage, I have broccoli. You can see a lot of them, their seed leaves are starting to turn kind of this yellowish color. I'm not entirely sure why that happens. I'm not sure if that just means that it's getting bigger or if they didn't have enough nutrients. Let me know if you can kind of give me some clarity on that. But I've been, for the tomatoes, the ones that were falling off, I just basically took them off and so that they didn't spread disease or anything. But I left these on because they're still pretty attached to the plant. We have some cauliflower, bok choy. I grew bok choy last year and I made one stir fry. It was delicious, and then I had nothing left. So I'm happy to have more of that this year. I have mustard greens. I didn't grow mustard greens last year, but my family historically likes them, so I am going to have an open mind and try them. I have several lettuce varieties, which is funny because our germination was great over there when we direct sowed the lettuce, so now I might have too much lettuce. This is broccoli as well. I have some lettuce here in the back, some cabbage, a couple herbs. So I have English thyme and summertime. I'm not entirely sure the difference, so I'm looking forward to eating them to find out. I have chamomile for tea. I grew chamomile last year and I got some flowers, but not nearly enough. So I'm hoping to plant 3 flowers this year and get enough, hopefully. And then on the end there, I have broccoli and collard greens. Love collard greens. Again, I come from a southern family. You have to have collard greens. Over here, these ones are the ones that might be just a little bit too young to come out just yet. Back here we have kale, Swiss chard, which I found that when I start in a tray, they usually get kind of tall and wispy, and when I start them direct sown, they do pretty well, but I got impatient and I put them in a tray. So we're gonna see if they survive. There's some lettuce in the back, and then you can see my pepper plants over on the end here. I don't think are quite ready, so they might go inside with me at the end of this. And then the basil here on the front, if I can show you the basil, that's barely ready, but I think at least a couple of those plants can go out. I just wanted to show you guys, I'm about to do some of the thinning. So if you remember, for lettuce, it's supposed to be every 3 to 6 inches apart, maybe in the end. If I don't thin it out, then the roots will all be competing with each other and they won't grow as big or produce as much as they possibly could. So the purpose of thinning is to give each plant its best shot, basically. So I'm just going to cut down, it's very sad, but I'm going to cut down the ones that are kind of crowding the area so that the one can thrive. So in this one, I'm going to try and save this seedling because it's the biggest and strongest. And so I will cut around it at anything that might try and compete for its nutrients. And so now, if I get these little ones out of the way, now you can see there's just this one here, and this whole area belongs to it. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing over here. These are extra crowded, so I just need to start getting rid of some so I can actually see what I'm doing. And you can actually eat these little seedlings that you're thinning or you're cutting down. They're just baby lettuce or microgreens, or depending on how small it is when you cut it. I'm gonna let mine just compost right here and feed their brothers and sisters. It's so hard to not cut down everything and actually know what I'm cutting. Okay, I don't need this one. Get rid of that one. We'll keep this one. I'm trying to see if this is 2 or 1. It is 2. So we'll cut this one. And this one. Okay. Oh, there's one right here. There we go. So now we've gotten that one down to 1. And then this one also has 1, and they're evenly or appropriately spaced so that it doesn't interfere with one another. I have consulted my trusty garden planner, and it looks like the first step on today's seedling planting is going to be determinate tomatoes. Now, just like every gardener in the history of gardeners, I have way more seedlings than I have space in my garden beds for the seedlings. But I actually think that's probably a good thing, because if the roly-polies get them, if we get a unexpected cold snap, if there's some early onset disease or even late onset disease, honestly, then all of these seedlings may not make it. So having backups is like a good comfort plan, comfort zone. I don't know where comfort plan came from. So that I can always have something to put back out here if something were to happen with what I have planned. So I have room for 3 determinate tomatoes in this area. So you should know there are 2 different branches of tomatoes and also potatoes. But for right now, tomatoes. Indeterminate and determinate. So indeterminate tomatoes have a indeterminate length that they could grow, or fruit that they could put out. So as long as you give them a trellis, kind of like the one that's behind me, that's where my indeterminate tomatoes are going to go. As long as you have a trellis and something to secure them to, then they will continue to grow. They will continue to put out fruit. They will grow for eternity, 6-8 feet even. I've heard of them even being taller than that. The second camp is determinate tomatoes. They will also grow similarly, but they won't grow forever. They have a determined size, and they're more likely to put out their fruit around the same time. These are often like sauce tomatoes, the Roma style tomatoes, San Marzano style tomatoes that will come in a determinate style, so that you have all of your tomatoes at one time. You can make your pasta sauces and make good on that crop. So I have this space set aside for determinate tomatoes because I do not plan on putting a super tall trellis here, and instead I'm going to put some sturdy little tomato cages so that they'll still have something to support them, but they don't need quite as much support as an indeterminate tomato. I'm going to plan to put this is a random germinated seed, who knows what it was. I'm going to plan to put my first determinate tomato here. You know, there's gloved gardeners and bare-handed gardeners. And I am a bare-handed gardener until I see a disgusting looking bug. And then I will grab gloves. I just went through and looked at all of the types or varieties of tomatoes that I have. And I actually don't have that many determinate. So this should be fairly easy to pick which ones I want to put out here. So after my quick Google search, I have 2 options. I have my San Marzanos, and I have these ones on this side, the Glacier tomatoes. So since I have 3, I'm going to plan on doing 2 San Marzanos because I desperately want to make some tomato sauce this year. I didn't make any last year, and I really wish that I did. And I'll do 1 Glacier tomato since it's still kind of experimental for me to see how I like it. So I'm going to choose this seedling just because it is the most advanced in its development. And I honestly, you know what, let me just grab my hose because these really should be moist before you take them out. So I'm just gonna mist them because I don't want to send them all over the place, just to moisten the soil a bit. Okay. Now, I will take this one that looks the furthest along. And I want you to be able to see the roots on this baby. It's got beautiful white roots. I'm not sure how well they show up on camera, and the sun is blinding me so I can't see it, but they look good. So I'm going to go ahead and bury it down here. So with tomatoes, you can actually bury them deeper than the soil surface that you created, which is good for me because mine are just a tiny bit leggy. So I'm actually going to bury it right up to about the seed leaves. And that it'll actually set roots along that stem and make it a healthier plant and also a sturdier plant, so it's not quite so floppy. So I'm just trying to, my soil is a little bit clumpy, so I'm trying to not mess everything up. Okay, I don't think that was quite deep enough. Let's try that again. There it is. Comfy in its new home. Hopefully it does okay. Now I've decided to take some creative liberties, and I'm actually going to do 4 determinate tomatoes instead of 2, or instead of 3, 4 instead of 3, just to sort of get more plants in the ground, basically. These glaciers, let me go ahead and give them a little mist. Whoa, whoa, okay. They don't look as far along as the San Marzanos are, but it's gotta be done, so. Come on, little baby. It still has some pretty good roots on it. There's just not as many. It's not, dripping in them, but it's got some pretty good looking roots on there. So we'll tuck this one in here. This one I'll do pretty close to the soil surface because it's not quite as leggy as the last one was. I might try and plant it just a little bit deep. There we go. There's that one. Okay, so now all 4 are in the ground. I am going to be better than I was last time and go ahead and do the labeling. So personally, I label on popsicle sticks. Last year I did little plastic signs, I guess. But I'm trying to get away from having plastic in the bed because they do end up getting buried or left behind. And I've been pulling out several from last season that I didn't even know were still there. So I just would prefer if it was wood breaking down in the bed instead of plastic breaking down in the bed. So I'm using popsicle sticks this year. There's a ton of different ways to do your labeling. Mine is fairly straightforward. I just put the name of whatever it is. So in this case, a San Marzano. I do the date that I planted it, which was 3/16, and where I got the seeds from. And I think these were from Johnny's. I like to do the date that I planted the seeds because sometimes I'm not sure if I should have a harvest yet and I just don't, or if it's just not time. So if I put the date on it, then I can look at, days until maturity and see if I did something wrong and I'm supposed to have a harvest and I don't, or if it's just not time. It'll help me with my patience maybe a little bit. This is the Glacier. It came from Botanical Interest. And then I will do that one more time for both of them. San Marzano. And one more Glacier. From Botanical Interest. Okay, so those are transplanted. Some people will choose to put the date of transplant and use that to calculate their days to maturity. It's not that important to me, so I don't necessarily do that, but that's an option for you if you would prefer that. Now these are our 4 teeny tiny little transplants. Hopefully they will do well. These are a little bit close, but I mean, one of them might die anyway, so it's probably fine. Now I'm gonna go ahead and water in these transplants, and then I am done with the determinate tomatoes. Now, it's always good practice to put up your trellis when you plant whatever crop it is. Last year, I did that with cucumbers, and that was successful. I did not do that with my tomatoes. I let them get way too big before I trellised them, and I wished the Oh my God. Okay. So it looks like all of my seedlings survived that catastrophe, but I let them get way too big before I trellised them, and then at that point it was just catching up for the rest of the season. So this year I want to try my best to trellis as I go. Now, one of my trellises, the netting that I have is not mailed to me yet, so I'm already behind on that one, but I'm gonna try my best. It's a goal. Okay, so here's my tomato cage that I'm using this year. I got them from Epic Gardening. I like that they're square. I like that they look sturdy. I've never actually used tomato cages before. Oh man. So now you're seeing me trying to put these tomato cages together. The only problem is that I actually haven't looked at these cages in months. I bought them and they've been sitting in my foyer for several months, and so I wasn't entirely sure how to put them together, although it seemed fairly self-explanatory. But my initial thought was that each of these sort of pieces was its own cage, but what I will soon come to find is that they actually stack on top of each other to make kind of a double decker, if you will, which honestly will work in my favor because I'll be able to support a taller plant. These determinate tomatoes honestly shouldn't grow much more than 4 or 5 feet, but I have heard of people that have grown them taller than that. And so I'm pretty happy with the quality of these cages and the height of the cages, and so I think I will be able to grow better determinate tomatoes than I did last year. One, because I know more about growing tomatoes, but also because I'll be able to support them the whole way and they won't break or become stressed from not having support. Now, the end of this bed is reserved for squash, which I want to grow for the first time this year, as well as possibly watermelon. I'm not sure if I'm going to grow it yet. I don't know that I want to dedicate the space to it. Watermelon vines need many, 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 many feet to just ramble around and create little baby watermelons, which are delicious, are one of my favorite fruits, but I don't know that I want to devote 4 to 5 feet to basically one watermelon plant. I'm not sure yet. In my planner, I have it as watermelon ? It's still a question mark. All right, so next, I think I'm gonna do one of my yellow tomatoes. I didn't grow any yellows last year. This year I have 2 that I did. I have Lemon Boy and Yellow Brandywine. So I'm gonna go ahead and plant a Lemon Boy, I think. These are supposed to be quite tasty. That's what I've seen on the internet, at least. Everybody knows the internet doesn't lie. The roly-poly pressure is much better on this end of the bed than it is on the other end of the bed where the carrots are. Thankfully. So hopefully my little babies will be safe. Now I have several varieties that I plan to grow just because I've heard good things about them. The first of which is, well, actually most of these, but next up is Brandywine. I actually bought these seeds last year, but I didn't leave space in my garden to actually plant them. So this year I am determined to plant them because it's a pretty classic heirloom tomato. It's supposed to be a delicious slicer, and I haven't gotten to experience it yet. So I'm gonna put Brandywine in next. So far, everything's roots have looked really good. I probably, again, I mean, I would love if they were spilling out of the bottom here and just super long, but I got my seedlings in a little bit late, and so it was either let them grow longer or plant them out smaller, and I'm ready to plant them out, or at least the ones that are even almost ready. I'm ready to get them out. There's a roly-poly. I wish he would die. Die, die, die. There we go. And now I just need a label. Now, I have every intention of companion planting. That's why I'm only planting in the back of the garden bed. So in the front, I plan to have basil and alyssum is what I have in the planter. The basil is still a little bit too small for me to put out. And the alyssum, I think I'm gonna go ahead and direct sow, but I did not bring it out with me, so I'll have to do that later. All right, what will we do next? Oh, I really want to grow this one. It's called Amish Paste. It is a paste tomato similar to the San Marzanos that we planted on the other bed, except this one is indeterminate, which was kind of surprising to me. So I can get more of them throughout the entire season. So I'll tuck Amish Paste in here. Get up. So this is part of why I like using straw as my mulch, because you don't have to be as precious about not burying it under the soil surface. If you have wood chips, you really should try as best you can not to bury them, because the wood, as it breaks down, will tie up some nitrogen that your plants could use, but instead it's being used by your mulch. The straw, because it's so close to being broken down already, it doesn't tie up nitrogen that way, so it can get underneath. I tried not to, just because it doesn't add any nutrients until it's broken down, of course, but it doesn't add any nutrients to the actual plant, so I'd rather the plant have access to soil than straw. But it's not the end of the world if you do bury some. All right, so next up is one of my favorites that I think I'll probably grow every year, ever since I grew it last year, because it tastes so good. It grew so well, and it's the most snackable tomato I've ever had. It's a cherry tomato. It's called the Sun Gold. I'm sure you've heard of it, and people loving to eat it everywhere you go. But I would like to add my voice to the chorus of people that say this is the best stuff. Uh-oh. Now next is another that I simply just have heard good things about and wanted to grow it myself. And that one is the Black Krim. I really liked the Cherokee Purple, like I said last year. And I really liked that kind of smoky, dark tomato-y flavor. And so the Black Krim is supposed to have that as well. I wanted to show you guys some pretty good news. While I was digging the hole for my Black Krim tomato, I can see all of this white in the soil. I'm not sure if you can see that. That is not mold. That is mycelium that is established in my soil, which is fantastic. And it's gonna help my plants to grow even better and to have an even more fruitful harvest. So that means that what I did last year worked at least somewhat. Right, I have room for one more, and I think I've gotten almost everything that I wanted in the garden in terms of tomatoes planted. And I have one more space, so I'm going to do my other yellow, the yellow Brandywine. So I got 0 Brandywines last year, and this year I will hopefully have both red and yellow. I think that would be really cool. This one looks the biggest, so we'll use this one. Ooh, bunch of ants over there. As long as they don't crawl on me, we'll be good. Now, it's always good practice to water in after you transplant or plant a seed, honestly. The purpose is to make sure that there's good soil contact between your soil that you transplanted in there with your little transplant's roots in it, and the soil of your bed or your in-ground garden bed, whatever you're planting into. Because those little air pockets, too much air can cause the roots to die. So we want to make sure they have good contact so that that's not something we have to worry about. Now, normally I would water a lot more deeply, but I'm doing a lighter water because we're supposed to get rain for the next 2 days. And so I don't want them to drown. Tomatoes in general like to be watered thoroughly, but not as frequently as other plants that you could plant. I think that's where I went wrong last year. So last year I lost a lot of my tomatoes, particularly my determinate tomatoes, to what's called blossom end rot, where the end of the tomato basically just rots away. And so you can either cut it off and eat the inside, or if it's too advanced, then you just lose the whole tomato. And I think that it was because I was assuming that because it was hot outside, they needed a deep watering almost every single day. And so I'm going to try to be a lot more careful this year to make sure that I'm not overwatering them so that I can try to avoid losing my plants to blossom end rot this year. Now, I've gone a little bit rogue. It was bound to happen. I'd been doing so good at sticking to my plan, and then it happens every time. This section here is all supposed to be kale, but I was looking at my seedlings and I have a lot more than just kale that needs to go in here. So I decided to put some collard greens in here, in keeping with my southern staples. I have 2 kales, and I think I'm gonna put a broccoli in here because I really want to do a better job of giving my broccolis, cabbages more space this year. So I've just been sitting here kind of thinking, do I want to do broccoli, broccoli, cabbage, cabbage? Is that enough room for the cabbage? I think it's gonna have to be enough room because I don't have unlimited space. I've seen those little benches that you can have or kneelers, and I always laughed at those and said, who could possibly need that? But I think I might need to get one. My poor knees are killing me. Okay, I think I've decided on broccoli, broccoli, cabbage, cabbage. I don't know if that's gonna make any difference or create any additional space, but in my heart it feels right. So that's what I'm gonna do. I have 2 different varieties of broccoli this year. Last year I grew DeChico, very classic, normal, basic broccoli. And then from Johnny's this year I got Happy Rich, which is supposed to be almost like a sweeter, more delicious type broccoli that I really want to try. Last year I didn't actually get much broccoli. I think I got 1 little head. I didn't get any side shoots, but that was because I hadn't learned that a brassica that is weak as a seedling is unlikely to recover, is unlikely to do better when you put it in soil. So I'm going to be careful about the ones that I plant. This one with the broken stem, that one won't go in, but a lot of these are pretty sturdy, so I feel like maybe I can get better broccoli off of them. And then I also want to try to get the side shoots after you harvest the main head so that I can get even more harvest this year since I got almost nothing last year. That mycelium that I saw over by the tomatoes is really all throughout this bed, and it's so reassuring that I did something right last year and that my soil is healthier this year even than it was last year. So I'm excited at what I might be able to get out of the garden this year after seeing that. None of these really have 3 or 4 true leaves, so they all have 2. So I'm just gonna go with whichever one looks the best. I think this one looks pretty good. Let's do that one, yeah. And they're a little bit leggy, as you can see, so I am gonna bury, oh, a worm, hi worm, get in there. So I am gonna bury it just a little bit deep just to make it a little bit more sturdy. You know, I've been thinking that I really should do a soil test on my garden beds because I've been amending them and filling them with, you know, the soil that I get from the store, but I don't see, I don't really see what the results of that are. I don't see what I'm deficient in. I'm just kind of guessing. And a soil test is a great way to take the guessing out of it and amend your soil with what your soil needs. I did do a soil test of my native soil, but we have the horrific Georgia red clay that is, even calling it soil feels criminal. It was basically a disaster. Nothing could ever possibly grow in there or live in there. So I'm sure that if I gave it time, I could turn it around just like you can any soil, but I think that would take so many years that I just don't have the patience for it. I did just recently change out my pathways to this natural wood mulch, hoping to introduce some sort of organic matter into this barren wasteland that is my native soil, but I don't have any real hopes of planting in ground in the relatively near future. It would take a lot. And I have perfectly good raised beds. So my cabbage seedlings have also, their seed leaves just shriveled up and basically are falling off. So I'm just taking those off because there's no point in putting something dead in the ground. But please tell me, is it, I don't remember this from last year. Is this what typically happens? The seed leaves will grow and the true leaves grow and the seed leaves die off? Did that happen and I didn't notice? I'm not sure. But let me know, because I'm hoping this doesn't mean that my seedlings are starting off unhealthy. So it looks like I messed up my plan to stagger the cabbage and broccoli. I've already put broccoli here and cabbage here, but you know, we're going with the flow today. This is my other variety of broccoli. This is the DeChico that I had last year as well, that I'm looking to get a little bit more broccoli out of this year. Well, a lot more actually. Don't these just look beautiful? In the front here, this is the Primero cabbage. It's supposed to be a red cabbage. And then in the back is the Speeder Radicchio. I don't know that I even like Radicchio, but it's quite beautiful. Look at that. Now, what I think I'll probably do with the rest of these seedlings that I didn't plant today, I'll probably try and pot some of them up into bigger, usually I have the 4-cell, this is the 6-cell, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I also have the 4-cell version, so I'll probably try and pot some of them up into that 4-cell version so that I can keep them alive in case something happens to these. And then I can kind of pot up the next one. And these can continue to grow a little bit better because they'll have more space, more nutrients than they have in these smaller 6 cells. So I'll probably do that in the next week or so. And I'll make sure that I bring you along with me. All right, I think that's gonna be it for today. We got a ton done today. almost one of every type of seedling that I have is in the ground, which is a relief. I'm really excited to see if they take off, and hopefully I win the battle against the roly-polies. I so appreciate you guys following along and spending some time with me in my garden. It means a lot. It makes the whole thing a lot more fun, so I really appreciate that. I hope that you will subscribe so that we can continue to do this as the season goes along and there's harvests and more fun things happening. If you have any questions, comments, requests, please drop them below. I'd love to see them. I'd love to hear from you. And I hope you guys are having fun gardening. Until next time.